Hey guys, and welcome back. Today, we're going to be making the Mandalorian's Jetpack. So, at the end of Season 1, Mando gets a super cool looking jetpack, which of course is famous. Many other Mandalorians have jetpacks, most notably Boba Fett. Now, this is Boba Fett's jetpack that I made when I made his whole costume about 3.5 years ago. So, honestly, it's not that bad for being made by a 12-year-old, but I think we can do much better when we make Din Djarin, aka Mando's jetpack. So let's get started. The first step was to draw and cut out the base shape onto a piece of foam core. You could also use cardboard or something rigid that's also fairly lightweight so you can build and pile up everything else on top of it. For the two side thruster tubes, I'm going to be using these plastic water bottles that I picked up from the dollar store. But the center one is a little bit bigger, so I'm going to be using a Pringles can. The can wasn't quite long enough, so I did have to cut off and attach part of another one. Luckily, I like Pringles. And then I covered that whole tube and kind of skinned it in a layer of 4mm thin craft foam. After I had the structure glued down, I started patterning out on some paper the pieces that surround the pink water bottles. This was just a lot of trial and error while looking at the reference picture, but I realized that I was kind of getting ahead of myself. I needed to do a little bit more building on the base of this, so I cut some pieces of foam core to glue in between the bottles in that specific shape. Now, the only reason I can cover these crappy seams with duct tape is because there will be at least one more layer over top of them with details, so they'll be hidden in the end. Because the water bottles weren't quite long enough to stick out the bottom, I took some caps to empty spray paint cans and glued those on because they're just the perfect size. And then I could cut out those geometric pieces that kind of go around the water bottles in that way. I made these out of some 6mm EVA foam, but you could also use foam core, cardboard, or whatever material you want, really. My friend Ryan over at RJR Productions actually made one of these entirely out of cardboard, which is pretty awesome. So definitely go check out his Mandalorian jetpack for some more ideas if you want to make your own. I took another piece of 6mm foam and curved it around the center tube to add another layer. And then I drew out the pieces that go in between the tubes, just looking at the picture and eyeballing the shape, but they're a little bit thicker, so I traced these onto my 1/2-inch EVA floor mat foam. These layer on top of each other, as you can see, and the top one has what looks like a vent, so I scored some lines into the foam and then used a heat gun to heat them up, which shrinks the foam and opens the cuts up. And I had to cut some special shaped pieces of foam to fill in some gaps here and there. Alright, so now we've got pretty much the base of the jetpack done. From here on out, it's just going to be adding in all the little details that really sell it. Some I may make custom out of foam, but others I'm just going to use little bits of junk that I find here and there to glue on and make it look cool. There's some little triangle details on the bottom, and I just use a knife to score that right into the foam core. And then I took some strips of 2mm foam. One, I cut a bunch of little lines into it and glued it along the top edge there. I cut a bigger strip of 6mm foam with a spacer on the back of the top part there,
so it will lay flat across the middle of the jetpack. There's two very specific little details near the top of the jetpack. One, I just found some little pieces of plastic, and the other is a cap to an old Sharpie.
For the tops of these pink water bottles, there's kind of a slight cone shape going on. So for that, I just looked for the perfect shape, and it turned out to be these little suction cups. Came in a pair, and they'll go right there. The neck of the main cylinder kind of bevels down, and you can find that specific shape in some spray bottles or water bottles. I happen to find it in this empty shampoo bottle, which, looking at it now, I probably could have just made the main tube overall, but whatever.
I glued the top onto the old Pringles can, and then for the smaller tube that it goes down to, I just used a cardboard poster tube. And then, as you can assume, more detailing with thin craft foam. There's a bunch of almost triangle shapes that go around the beveled section, and that gives it a really cool look after those were all glued on. There's some small raised stripes or rings around the small tube, and then of course the cone on the top. So I just patterned this one out by hand with a lot of trial and error.
Basically, if your cone looks like Pac-Man, you're doing all right. With the top all finished up, the details are really making this thing look cool, but the last thing we need to make are the bottom parts with the little rockets that go on there.
I cut some additional circles out of the 6mm foam, and then for the spheres, I used some ping pong balls. I detailed these up with more 2mm craft foam and some small washers. And then for the little rocket part on the bottom, I actually took some small plastic shot glasses, also from the dollar store. This build is very cheap. It's all dollar materials and craft store foam I had on hand. The last thing, I took the cap to the Pringles can from way back at the start of the video, made a little foam vent, and glued it on.
Alright, and that is the full thing fully built. I am very happy with how it turned out, but obviously it's quite colorful, so it's time to paint. I'm gonna give the whole thing a base coat of gloss black spray paint, but first, those two suction cups on the side thrusters, I think I'm gonna hand paint those because the rubber, whatever material they're made out of, sometimes doesn't like to take the paint very easily. I just know that from some experience, so yeah. I coated it with that metallic mirror spray paint that I used on the armor, and it's looking pretty cool. The last thing I need to do to it is weather it, and I'm going to be doing that the exact same way I did on the rest of the costume, gunging it up with some black shoe polish, wiping most of it away from the high areas, but leaving it in some of the details and crevices, which gives it some more definition. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that, so that is it for the entire jetpack build. So if you were just building this as a prop to display, you can put it on your wall, you're done. But for me, I need a way to attach this to my full Mandalorian cosplay so I can wear it.
I did this in the most simple way possible with a couple pieces of Velcro glued onto the jetpack. I marked where I wanted it to go on the shirt, and now it's finished.
So thank you very much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button and share it with your friends. If you have any questions on this build, make sure to leave them in the comments section down below. And next episode, we're making Mando's weapons, so make sure you subscribe.